Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. Here on January the 14th of 2019, we are coming to you Monday night for Weekly Manga Recap, which is probably what we're going to be doing for the foreseeable future for a little bit. Things are a little different now in this new age of manga, and I want to kick things off by saying I am excited to get started, but I'm not going to sound like that throughout much of the episode. I have prepared so many negative thoughts this week. It feels bad because it's like, oh, we usually start off the year with like something good or something we liked, I should say. Mm-hmm. And no, there's so much that I'm angry about this week.
It's a new year and a new Nick, and I like to think that's when like you unravel your long scroll of complaints. And complaint the first, I can't watch Raw. Complaint the second.
That's not a complaint right now, let me tell you.
Complaint the second. Why don't they use Michael Kanellis more? It just becomes a long list.
Because he sucks.
It just becomes a long list of your thoughts on Raw and not actually anything connected to manga.
They're all like really bad hot takes too.
Complaint the 76th.
They should make Dolph Ziggler the world champion.
NXT stands for nothing. They need a new name.
Why can't it be a proper acronym?
They need to do an NXT Florida.
Wait a minute.
Then after that, maybe an NXT Mexico. Florida branch.
I want to talk to you about how weird that is as a complaint. The layers to this. The Florida-based promotion needs a Florida branch.
And then a Mexican offsite that's a further
that is also in Florida. Oh, God. Anyway, it won't be a weekly manga. We're still the same old weekly manga recap. Still talking about wrestling for no reason. We have a lot of manga to get through this week.
Do you think, Nick?
So
we have so much to talk about, so little room. Do you think if we started up a wrestling podcast that we'd interject it with manga?
With manga? We would have to. It would be a requirement. It's actually some of my favorite stuff that, because when I did the wrestling podcast with Gavin Peter, because we stopped doing it a few years ago because I just didn't have the time to edit it. But a few times we just come up with these insanely geeky ideas and like reference like this is like a sports manga and stuff. And it's like, man, I just can't like separate these two parts of my personality at all whatsoever. They have to like merge together because they're all me.
I don't know if it's the wired or tired part of the meme where I'm like, everything in the world is like wrestling if you think about it long enough. Politics is like wrestling. Cooking is like wrestling.
Sure, why not? We have a lot to talk about this week, though, Chris. So as much as I enjoy our usual tangents, I think that to make sure that I'm not 2 hours late for work, that we should actually get going. And we have to start off with a series that we took as a recommendation quite a while ago, but things kept on getting in the way, preventing us from talking about it. And so now we are finally going to spend a little bit of time talking about 87 Clockers, a series that is all about overclocking computers. And there's a whole thing with like there's a pun on the title because one of the characters' names is Hana, and it's like Hachi Naname or something like that, or the words for 8 and 7, so 87, 87, Hachi Naname, Hana, it's a whole thing. That's why there's 87 in the title.
I thought it was because his sister occasionally wears like a shirt that has 87 on it.
I think it's just a thing that runs through the series. Like there are references to 87 in this, but
like that Jim Carrey movie where he's trapped in the hotel and he keeps seeing the number or whatever.
If you say so.
I might have just made up a movie in my head right now. That may not have actually come out now that I'm thinking about it.
I might have just made the trailer in my mind.
I'm like, this is incredible. Renee Zellweger's in it. Daniel Day-Lewis shows up. This is crazy. Why didn't people talk about this more?
I mean, like,
Iron Man was in it.
Okay, now I think that's not real. Everything else, like, I can believe that exists. Okay, maybe not. So 87 Clockers, it's about this guy named Kanade, who is this guy who was like a violinist, and he's kind of lost his passion for music. So he's just kind of skating by on life now. He's gonna like work for his mom as a tutor for a bit, and then he literally just sees this woman out standing outside of her apartment in the cold, and falls in love with her, and finds out that the guy that she's staying with, Mike, is a world-renowned PC overclocker who like has the world record for the best overclocked PC, and she's his assistant slash landlady slash admirer. They have a weird relationship. And so Kanade is like, I am immediately in love with that girl. I must win her heart. And the only way I know how to do so is by pretending that I'm into overclocking PCs. So I will just live this lie until I actually become an overclocker who is passionate about it. And someday I will win her heart. Because everyone in this series has pure motives, Chris. Everyone's a good person in this manga. I hate this series.
I was gonna say everyone's an asshole in this series except for Hana, from what I've got to.
Well, even she's using Kanade in order to get some fucking money out of him to buy parts.
Well,
that's the reason why they befriend him.
There's a couple things in it that are sort of establishing points. So it's worth noting that Mike, I think is his name, Mike.
That's what they call him. Yes,
are not in a relationship, or
they are not.
On her end, she's not. They're not in a relationship. I don't know if Mike considers people in a frame where he could even understand whether he is or is not in a relationship. But she is everything else, certainly, in his life. His maid, his cook, his live-in butler, his fucking like
his gopher, his financial support.
I was gonna say, his breadwinner, whatever. And he's not the best in the world. He's the best in Japan, though. And Japan apparently does not have an overclocking champion. Like, they're not one of the best. So he's a big deal in Japan, but nowhere else. So that's why he's kind of got this ambition to keep going forward. And she's his partner, which is relevant because overclocking is apparently done in teams generally of two. And he's an asshole to Hana all the fucking time. He's
abusive towards her.
He's a complete shithead. He's a very toxic person. And Kaneda sees it and is like, I don't like the way that this is going. So what if I become the number one overclocker? Then will you work with me and you'll leave him? She's like, yes. And that's the basis for this manga, where it's incredible because the series is actually somewhat interesting in terms of taking me into a world that I knew nothing about. I knew of what overclocking was by hearing people talk about it, and that's it. I didn't really know what it was. I was like, I don't know. I think you break your computer to do something. I don't know. But it shows this world, and it's somewhat interesting. There's intricacies to it I hadn't considered. There's also some bullshit. We'll get to that later. But it's interesting. And the manga would be very interesting if it weren't for the fact that there's this plot it has to keep getting back to, where you're like, it's the weirdest roundabout way to give this character a motivation for overclocking that he has no real desire to do. He expresses at one point that he's like overclocking is interesting. I'm good at it because I have a musical background, and having that kind of precision is very
I can hear things.
Yeah, and I'm like, sure. But he also specifies that, and he's like, but I would not be doing this if it wasn't for the fact that I will win Hana if I get to the end of this.
She will sit on my trophy case right at the top.
It's astonishing because there's a real problem with how Hana is treated by Mike, and it would be as though if there was a movie where they're like Jessica is being stalked by Aaron, and she needs to get away from him, and the only way for Jessica to be saved from Aaron's toxic attitudes is if Travis wins the Super Bowl. You're like, wait, what do these two have to just talk to her? Like, help her get out of this. I don't know.
No, you don't understand because see, Aaron is such a great football player that Jessica can't help but want to be with him and support him because she thinks that he is the best and will not be convinced otherwise unless Travis proves that he's better. And the only way to do that is by winning the Super Bowl. That's the only way that she'll ever be convinced that she shouldn't be with Aaron because there's someone who's a better football player. Not a better person or a better partner, but a better football player. And that's all that matters.
It's such a bizarre roundabout way to put a plot into a series about overclocking because there's so much passion to overclocking in this that you have to assume the manga has some level of interest in it. They're like, I enjoy overclocking because I actually, after reading part of this series, I started to actually look up things about overclocking competitions because I was curious. And it's actually amusing. The first tournament they go to has a grand prize of about like $2,000 in ours.
Jesus Christ.
Well, that's the tournament they went to. That's first prize. The World Championships in 2002. The World Championship, the grand prize was $3,000. And they did,
seriously.
You're like, the contest they had in this shitty cafe was 66% of what the world champion got.
Like, I skipped around a bit in this series, and like towards the end, it's like they're at, you know, the League of Legends esports grand championship or something like that with a massive stage and a worldwide broadcast. It's like there's no fucking way.
I never even knew there were overclocking competitions until they said they were, and I was like, are there? And I went onto YouTube. And the second video I watched was the one I saw, which was the World Championships for 2012.
Like, they exist. They're a thing. But there's not a lot of pomp and circumstance about them.
The documentary I watched was all about, they were like, yeah, like, we're just not popular.
Niche. Like, and that doesn't really bother me, though. Because, like, out of the problems I have with this series, the fact that it gets super into overclocking is not a problem with me. I don't know enough about overclocking for me to ever go in this series like, well, that's just ridiculous. That's, you know, stupid. Because the point of a series like this, it's basically a sports series. And what is the point of a sports manga? It is to get the reader to be invested in the activity that it is all about, even if they are unfamiliar with it to begin with. And in my opinion, it fails at this. And it fails at this because it's bullshit. I just want to explain. The first ever, like, tournament of any kind that they take part in, any competition whatsoever, is not actually purely an overclocking tournament. It's an overclocking / gaming tournament. It's a local thing that takes place in, like, a LAN, not a LAN, you know, like a freaking computer. What do you even call those places? A net cafe, basically.
Yeah, net cafe.
And so by this point, Kanade has randomly run into a girl named Julia, who is also an overclocker. She idolizes Mike from a distance, and her whole gimmick is that she is very, very, very particular and passionate about using specifically fan-cooled computers. And this was something that I learned from the series, was that, you know, there's a whole difference in terms of the different cooling methods, because whenever you're overclocking your PC, you have to make sure that the thing doesn't overheat, which I knew that part. But there are all sorts of different methods to accomplishing this. And there's like freaking like using like nitros cubes and applying them to certain areas of the thing when you've got everything outside of the shell of the computer and stuff like that. But for Julia specifically, she believes in using fan-cooled PCs as opposed to water-cooled PCs, which are all the rage amongst overclockers. And I had no idea that this was a whole thing. So she ropes Kanade into joining her in this gaming / overclocking competition. And this is one of the first times that you get to see what Kanade has to offer in terms of unique skills, because they have to switch off one of them handling the overclocking of the computer while the other one is gaming on it at the same time. And so, like, Kanade uses his super sharp hearing ability to see things coming that in a game that he has like very little experience in. So he doesn't fall for a trap that a lot of amateurs fall for because he hears the telltale signs of a trap being set. So a little bit of cool stuff there. We also learned that Mike is actually human because he sucks as a gamer. All he knows how to do is overclock. Boo, 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 boo. And also Hana is super broken because she's good at everything, apparently. Like, I have no idea how this woman sleeps. Like, she does everything. So, but when we first get introduced to Julia's skills as a gamer, she comes in with her own tower and sits down to play a game against a guy who's got a water cooled PC. And he's like, ha ha ha, water cooling is so much better than fan cooling. Look, you're overheating. Ha ha ha. And then she's like, click, click, and the shell of her computer falls off and reveals that there's like 4 extra fans in it.
It's actually pretty dope.
It's stupid.
No,
why just do that to begin with?
It's so awesome because her whole fucking motif is her computer is like a butterfly. She decorates. Like there's a scene where she starts and she's like decorating with little fucking like she's bedazzling it. And you're like, this is weird. Like, why are you doing that? And then the fucking wings of her computer open up.
Back and forth.
And the fucking bedazzling even comes up because like, oh, she put those on because those are extra weights because with all the extra motion, the computer could like jump off or something like that. No, it's awesome. Fuck you.
Why didn't she just open it up to begin with? Unless she specifically wanted to challenge a guy with a water-cooled PC and trick him into thinking that he was going to win temporarily.
Well, I think you can't. It probably is like one of those things where it doesn't like protect against the heat forever. Like it's not a constant. So you really like when you open it up to that point, like revving up to that.
No.
All right. I mean, I'm throwing an offer out there. I don't know. I thought it was dope.
So they go through this gaming / overclocking competition, which as I saw it unfolding, I was like, this is the worst laid out competition ever because they're playing a game that is straining the capabilities of all of their computers unless they specifically overclock them. What the fuck kind of game made it past the testing stage for this that everyone still wants to play it afterwards?
Well, I think that's the point is that's like the reason it's an overclocking competition and not just a gaming competition is that they pick a game that specifically strains the specs of your computer.
So that they all just like, yeah, Fallout 76 is awful, but it's perfect for our means.
I mean, maybe. It very well could. It would crash a lot unintentionally. So, I mean, I guess you have that. But the thing that confused me is, so the first tournament they go to, Mike secretly attends it in a mask and everything because they need money, and he does nothing to bring home money except work. Well, he does work. He does work at like a moving heavy things job. I'm not really sure what he does. He just moves heavy things. But he then goes home and just sits around and overclocks. So he needs to bring home some money. So he's convinced to do it. And because he's Mike and he's like, I don't know, some kind of idiot savant, he's playing the game. And during the middle of it, he he runs into a place he didn't consider. And everyone's like, dogs? I didn't even know there were dogs in this level because his character's getting attacked by dogs. And then they're like, did Mike just find a secret dev room full of blackjack? And I'm like, how did he overclock into this room? I don't understand this.
He didn't overclock into it. He just randomly was so bad that he came across a secret level that no one had found before by accident.
But that's what I mean. I'm like, how did he, like, why is this part of a gaming competition if they're like, everyone's like, he found dogs and shit like that. I'm like, wouldn't this become a speed running competition then if they were like actively trying to finish the map in the shortest amount of time possible?
But he's so bad at that, Chris, that he randomly found the secret level instead of doing that.
Which I do love, if only because Mike, the inconsiderate mega asshole he is, knows he's in a competition with $2,000 online. He's like, I can play a couple rounds of blackjack.
He's like, maybe I'll find some super extra secret double prize. And Hana's just like, just finish the level. I hate you.
She's just like, I can't stand you. You're such an asshole. Finish the level. And he does it. They drop.
It's so yeah. I there's this whole thing. I mean, like weird stuff happens in this series, and honestly, it's those kinds of that whole like gaming competition is probably like the high spot of what I actually read because it's just a bunch of bullshit, stupid jokes. But like you said, like unfortunately, he keeps on having to go back to this plot in which everyone demonstrates that they are a selfish asshole who cares nothing for anyone but themselves. Uh, I know that Kanade allegedly, cares about Hana, but it's only because he wants her to be his. Uh, Everyone has like some sort of unrequited affection for someone else, but they don't deserve to be with them because fuck them, they're all garbage people.
It's this weird juxtaposition between the fact that this is trying to be a series about a kid discovering a new hobby, and the premise for it is there's a woman in an abusive relationship that he's trying to like get her out of by winning this competition. So it'll be like a scene where like fucking Mike's like, "What the fuck? Did you use my fucking soy sauce or something? You stupid bitch! Get out of my house!" And he's screaming at her, and then it'll cut over to fucking Kanata, and he's just like, "Huh? Nitrogen, eh? That seems interesting."
Why? Well, she told me to just increase the output of the piece of the hard drive by 2%, but I want to see what happens if I crank it up. Boom!
You just have to sit there and you're like, this is so bizarre as you read it more and more in context. Like they keep cutting over to this shitty situation she's in. You're like, why are we still overclocking? Everyone is an asshole though. Julia is an asshole because there's specifically a second tournament that comes up, and she's like, she was ready to quit because it was kind of like a thing that she was passionate about, but she's like in she's in like med school of some degree. I think she wants to be a chemist. I can't remember her exactly. She wants to be in a lab, and she's kind of like realized she's like, all right. We went to this tournament. I pushed air cooling as far as I can. I'm ready to get out of it. But then she sees that the big tournament's coming up, and Mike's scheduled to appear there. So she's like, one more
My hero.
run. So she's like, I need a partner, though. So she goes back to Kaneda, who's her partner, and she's like, hey, join this competition with me. And she knows that Kaneda is trying to get further and further into overclocking, including using nitrogen. So they show up to the tournament, and Kaneda's there, and he's like, oh, hey, there's like specific contests just for nitrogen. And it like pans over to Julia, and she's like, phew, thank God I didn't tell him about that, because he would have definitely joined one of those competitions instead of teaming up with me. And it's just treated like a joke, like, that's stupid, Kaneda. And you're like, that's just kind of shitty. But yeah. I think my favorite is when when Kaneda's teaming up with Julia. Because I don't know why it's part of her thing, but she wears very sexy underwear. It happens like a couple times where you see her like.
Well, see Chris with the there's two female characters in the series. So one of them is the pure person who does everything perfectly and stuff like that. The other one's got to be the sex symbol.
The Betty and Veronica.
That's just how it works.
And there's a specific scene because
a woman writes this series, by the way. It's really weird how much this plays into toxic masculinity and stuff, considering that. But I guess that's just one of the things. It's just like, certain industries are just so immersed in that, yeah, female creators fall prey to those, conventions too. So
there's a moment then, because Kaneda is technically, he's not living with her, but he stays at her house overnight so they can overclock, because they both have like day things they have to do. And there's like
that's one of the things too. It's like his family keeps on interpreting whenever he has some woman over so that they can overclock. It's like, oh my god, he's got a girlfriend. Kanade's gonna get laid.
Yeah, like in the same way We Never Learn has that one panel end like joke to the end of its chapters. There's like a one panel joke at the end of every chapter of 87 Clockers, which is his family being like, he's going to cabaret clubs, and you're like, I always forget he has a family when this happens. But the scene is referred to is Kaneda staying over at her place, and he gets like a message from her that says, it looks like it's about to rain. Can you bring my laundry in? And he goes out, and the laundry is obviously, it's just sexy underwear and negligee. And he grabs it, and he's like, why am I doing this? I'm a man! A man! And he like hurls it onto the ground. And I'm like, what Why are you so upset that she didn't tell you to wear them and dance for her or something like that? You just had to bring them in, dude. And he has this giant temper tantrum all over the place about it.
I can't touch women's underwear. Ah!
The thing that makes me laugh is just that he brings the whole fucking like hanger in and then throws it on the bed in anger while screaming, "I'm a man!"
Yeah, keep telling yourself that, buddy.
I wish I could say I enjoyed this series because I actually do find the overclocking stuff interesting. I think there is something unique to it. It's just I like documentaries about weird stuff, and getting a chance to kind of see something different is always an interesting experience. But the plot is just so unnecessarily distracting and bad that every time it's brought up, I'm like, oh, right, I hate all of this. And that's really where it comes down to. I wish I could recommend this to people because I think there is something interesting. And I did actually learn a lot about overclocking from it. But it's like, it's just the fact that it has this premise that's so flawed that I really can't recommend it to people. Now, I didn't finish it. Maybe it gets better by the end, but I'm going to take a guess and say it might not as well. So it might not be worth trying to read. You're like, maybe the end is where it gets amazing.
As many efforts as I made to try and get through the series, after I made a good, some headway into it, there reached a point where, like, for days, weeks afterward, I'd be like, I should read more 87 Clockers while I've got the time. But I hate all of them. I don't want to. So that's really all that I can say about it, is that it made me hate everyone that was in it. And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting premise for a series. It's something different, and that was one of the things that was intriguing about it, I will say. But you're going to basically have to get into it and be like, oh yeah, these seem like reasonable people, in which case I will judge you as a person in order to get into it. I cannot recommend this series because everyone's a douchebag. So, hey.
Read it if you enjoy astonishingly strange series, though.
Sure.
That's your niche.
Okay, so we are going to move on from that. And then we're going to just get into the recap portion of the Manga Recap because we've got quite a few series this week to cover. So we're going to begin with My Hero Academia, chapter number 212, That Which is Inherited, Part 2. This is quite a quick chapter. It is like 12 pages long. So I don't know what the hell's going on with that. But then again, Horikoshi, I'm sure, is constantly having to do promo stuff. So we get basically a couple different character things in this chapter. We start off with Uraraka. So we get a flashback to she, remembers the first time that she ever witnessed a pro hero in action, and the thing that she paid attention to was how everyone was so excited and happy when they saw this guy, and she loved seeing that, and so she decided from there that she wanted to help out people who looked like they were in trouble. But in the time since she's arrived at UA, she, of course, has been looking at Deku a whole lot, and she realized eventually, like, there's going to be a point when heroes need that sort of protection too, in particular, the guy that she likes. But that's a cool, way of, like, actually demonstrating, like, the way that her, her point of view as a hero has been developing over time. And, like, it's not just like, I will protect him. It's like, there's going to have to be someone who's actually paying attention to these people who are doing all the protecting themselves, and is going to have to support them in that regard. And that's a cool way of looking at it. In the present, she leaps into action. I do actually want to just give a brief bit of praise to the typesetting in this, because as the energy is swirling around Deku, it's like partially covering up some of the word bubbles. That's cool. So she calls out to Deku to try and calm down, but he can't seem to control himself, control the power that's bursting out of him. So just the same as the previous chapter, Uraraka spots Shinso in the shadows and calls out to him, and she says, hey, brainwash Deku, you've got to stop him. And Shinso has his own flashback, which is a little bit, I don't know, it's not as effective as the one with Uraraka, I think, because he's just like, what do I ask him? He's like, I'm pretty sure that if he has any sense, he will respond to you in order to stop himself from hurting people, Shinso. Say anything. But I guess it's one of those things where it's like, you might freeze up in an unexpected scenario. So whatever.
Yeah.
But he recalls, losing to Deku at the sports festival and how he was so excited to actually show Deku what he has learned and how he has changed since then. And he wants to prove to himself that, he was going to be a great hero and use his quirk to help people. And they've lost their opportunity to do that now as a result of this unexpected twist. So he just calls out to Deku and says, let's fight. And Deku says, okay. And Shinso uses his brainwashing to seemingly knock Deku unconscious. At which point, we see Midoriya in the dream world of One for All. And a weird-looking guy with goggles who looks like he's from, like, a 90s comic. Big leather jacket, bandolier of bullets and stuff. And he just starts scolding Deku all of a sudden. And says, we told you that you're not alone. Now it just happens to be the right time, and it manifested, right? So what's with this sorry crap? This power in you is not something that you use casually, all distracted. Not anymore. Pull yourself together. And that's where the chapter ends. Like I said, very short chapter. And seemingly we're going to get more insight into the previous wielders of One for All going into the next chapter.
So I like the start of this chapter quite a lot. I mentioned before not really finding much to find interest about Uraraka. She had her moment back in the sports festival, and then since then she's essentially done more or less very little. I know she did save Deku at the end of the overhaul arc, but outside of that, she's sort of just been like, I don't know, around. Mm-hmm. And in a series where Bakugo is firmly the second most important character, and Todoroki has become that third, like the third in that group, she's kind of fallen back into this group with like Ida and Kirishima and all things like that, where you're just like, I don't know, it's just kind of a hodgepodge of other characters back there. So I like getting to see that we now have a firm idea about what her sort of motto of being a superhero is, what her motivation has become, what really drives her mentally, and then having it come out in this moment when she's just like, I'm going to help my friend here. This is what he needs. This is what my way of being a hero is all about. It's a very effective kind of way of cementing this. It hopefully is a chance for more to kind of come out of it. It's solid. I've been doing this reread of Naruto recently and posting thoughts on Twitter. And one of the things I've kind of come away from the early part is like, wow, how awful Sakura is. Yeah. And it's nice to see the Sakura of My Hero being slightly better. Although this is 200 chapters into it, so it's really not like a high point to be like 200 chapters later, she gets much better.
Uraraka was not nearly as annoying as Sakura early on.
No, she's quite the mess early on. I don't know how you can be alone and still fail the Birkdale test, but she does it constantly.
Well, it's because she's got inner Sakura, so there you go. Remember how that was a thing? That faded quite. That one who got into Shippuden. So, yeah, I was going to move on from there to Food Wars Shokugeki no Soma. Chapter 294, A Midsummer Christmas. Soma is having his showdown against Sarge, Chainsaw Girl. And he is using disposable ice cream spoons in his recipe, which pisses off Sarge because she's like, how dare you counter my armed dish with ice cream spoons? I mean, it's method of preparing food. I mean, like...
Well, it's going from something so grand to something so tawdry. She has a chainsaw blade, Nick, and he killed her with wooden spoons. He's like, and now your counter.
Yeah, he said that like when he checked the refrigerator for ingredients, he didn't have everything he wanted to prepare his dish, so he ran back to the mini mart in order to get more stuff. So he got ice cream spoons and stuff in a plastic bag. So he starts preparing his dish. We get a flashback from Sarge, who recalls General Asahi, the one who handed me the greatest loss I've ever suffered, and the one who showed me the path I was meant to walk. Flashback to when Asahi defeated her, and he's like, the winners do anything they want with the loser, right? It's like, oh, I get it. It's supposed to be all sexy because, yeah. And so she's like, fine. And Asahi reaches out his hand to her and says, I'll let you stay by my side. So give me a hand with my little plan. And then she was like, and then he passed judgment and declared some of you here to be nothing but unworthy trash. So why do you like him again? Is it because he beat you? Is that it?
Yeah.
Is that the backstory? Is that it?
Yeah, it's admiration.
That's the special bond between villains. Yeah, okay.
It's admiration for him. I don't know.
He beat me in a Shokugeki, so I greatly admire him now.
I mean, isn't that the logic that most of Soma's like hangers on have? They're like, he beat me in a Shokugeki, and now we're best friends.
Good point. Good point. At least there's like some explanation that's attached to that, though. Where it's like, you showed me the way. Instead, it's just like, he beat me, and he hates you, so I hate you. All right. Most of the rest of the chapter is Soma preparing his dish. We get a flashback to Soma's childhood when Joichiro would basically have him go running around trying to prepare stuff for the restaurant, coming up with new recipes, coming up with orders for a bunch of people really quickly, and basically just see this montage of Soma having to run around, be overwhelmed by a bunch of stuff, until eventually we reach the point basically a little bit before when he went off to Totsuki, where Joichiro was like, hey, can you handle this, Soma? And he's like, yeah, you bet I can. And he's, basically been hardened by fire as a result of working in this restaurant. It's pretty basic, like, Soma has worked in Yukihira's shop for a really long time, and so he is used to doing a lot of different things. That's why he's a good chef. Okay. It's something we've seen a lot of, and I feel like this is something that would have probably been a lot more effective 250 chapters ago. After all the other stuff we've seen Soma do and explanations for why he's good at what he does, it's just like, yeah, And I know that the point is that, oh yeah, he is the inheritor of Yukihira from Joichiro and not Asahi, and that's the point. But it's like, all right, that's why he's good, I guess.
It's fine. I've like had to accept that this is a fight against the most mook of the fucking noir shows.
Right. So the Mook of Mooks doesn't get a very compelling backstory, and Soma's backstory component is not very compelling either. So whatever, let's just get through it.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we had to make sure there's like 7 of these fucking dudes, and they all have to get beaten at some point.
Yeah. So Soma's dish looks like it's like a Yule log with ornaments on it, but the ornaments also look like firecrackers. When one of the judges eats, she's like floating in the air with a spotlight on her, surrounded by angels. Soma gives his long explanation for why his dish is super good, and then he grabs the fuse of one of the firecrackers at the end and says, these aren't just any firecrackers, they're the perfect finishing touch for a midsummer party. There is a second stage to my dish. I bet you didn't see that coming from a Soma dish.
Something transforms or breaks open or explodes.
Or is added to it, or fucking, yeah. It's like, okay, it's a Shokugeki in Shokugeki no Soma. There you go. That's it.
It's fine. We'll get more soon, hopefully.
I mean, as far as some of the more objectionable stuff in Food Wars recently, it's just, all right, this chapter is there. Whatever. Eden Zero,
chapter 26, 2 sisters.
What is going on in this cover page?
I think this is one of the B-Cubers, and probably like she has like an
education
channel, and Rebecca's there sleeping. I think so, because I think
she's never going to get new viewers from this crossover if she acts that way.
Yeah, it's a little rough. So she's got to figure it out. But
she should be into it. She should like have one of the hand puppets on.
Yeah, or be taking her top off, which you'd think you'd be like, how does that get more viewers? Well, Nick, Why don't you just wait till this chapter and we'll tell you? So the real sister showed up at the end of last chapter.
The real Seven Deadly Sin.
Yep, they're there. The real funeral wreaths. And she's there to basically show down. So we cut back in the Rogue Out Church when Hamura. It's because I remember it as it's also a location in Overwatch where you fight a lot. I think it's Hamura. I'm probably wrong. I should stop saying Hamura, but I'm going to. Hamura and Weiss found her, and Weiss is like, "Oi, why don't you just cuddle down with your laser sword?" And she's like, "I can't, but you can." And then she finished by saying, "I desire your trust." And we see from the fact that the real sister is there, Weiss must have done it. So,
guess so.
Yep, there we go. Yeah, it is Hamura. All right, I'm not wrong. I'm smart. So they're like, "Hey guys, we gotta tell you, a chronophage is coming." So everyone's like, "We gotta get out of here." And the real sister is like, "Who the hell are you guys?" And she explains why she got captured. Like 10 years ago, she came here, she got knocked out, hooked up in a church, and the fake sister has just been slowly taking her powers. I guess she had it all set up in her church for this.
Hang on.
Okay.
So the exact words that real sister uses are, "I remember being surrounded by a bunch of freaks, and the next thing I knew, I was hooked up in the basement of some filthy old church for 10 years. Okay, so I was captured for 10 years. So I do a little digging and find out there's some moron out there going by my name and using my powers like she owns them." When?
Just now, I assume.
Just now.
Yeah, she just got
Don't
out of...
say like, "So I do a little digging, so these people tell me that you've been using my powers."
Well, Nick, as we find out, the real sister, she's got kind of an edge to her. She's got kind of
some attitude.
Yeah, she's got attitude. So she's like, "Yo, jabroni, you think you're gonna come here and take my real powers? I'm gonna knock you sideways, sucker." And then she does the John Cena "you can't see me," and then she does the spinneroonie because she's got so much attitude. She's all over the place.
Multiple gimmicks.
Yeah. She has 7 gimmicks for depending on the day. And the real or the fake sister.
Oh, suck it.
And I've got 2 words for you. Raw is. So the fake sister starts crying because she's like, "I didn't mean this. All I ever wanted to do was heal my injured comrades." And then people started flocking to me like a church, I guess, because I dressed in like a nun habit and it was kind of like a weird kinky nun.
I didn't dress in a habit and instead just wore sexy lingerie over my robot body.
And I always meant to give these powers back, but I thought you were kind of this miracle worker. And maybe the only thing I enjoy this chapter is the real sister just starts beating the shit out of her. It's like, "I don't care. I don't care what your sob story is."
I will say that Sister Ivory did actually endear herself to me because, like, this happens and the villain gets like, "Oh, just like, fuck you." You kept me locked up for 10 years and pretend to be me.
Yeah, and you've been hurting people the entire time. Fuck you. And they beat her up, and then she has this moment with Shiki. And they're like, "Yeah, it's bringing back memories." She has this thing where she points to her head. She's like, "Yes, witch sent me a message. That voice brings back memories." Because that's more of her attitude, where she points to her head kind of like that. And has like a grin. And Shiki's like, "Call me Shiki." And she's like, "Ha." And then she's like, "Well, I got to wrap up some business before this is done." She starts taking her top
Anyway,
off.
Unlike the fake sister who had to remove her nun habit to use all of her powers, I have to take off my nun habit to use all my powers.
I'm reaching the point where I almost have to assume it's just the aesthetic of Eden Zero that weird, unnecessary nudity is part of the universe, and you're not meant to like question it.
And
like,
to be fair, her design looks much more like, I just designed a robot to look sexy this way than Fake Sisters did. Because she was like, "I've got stockings and garters," and she's got like metal underwear. It's like, okay, fine.
I mean, I still understand why she has to take off her cloak, but I guess that's like saying like, I don't understand. Like, why would the guitarist in Mad Max be shooting fire out of it? That
I
seems
mean,
like a waste of resources and a resource destroyer. Like, nah, it's just the aesthetic. Sister has to take off her clothes to do magic.
she sends out energy everywhere and then she puts it back on after, so maybe it would have like messed up her clothing, and so it was actually for a practical purpose.
Maybe.
Maybe.
No one said it. The only thing we get to it is Shiki says, "Why do you take your clothes off?" And Wo's like, "Oi, ain't you ever seen any of those nun videos?" And I'm
So
like,
so
"All right."
Weiss used 50-year-old internet to whack off to sexy nun videos. Good to know.
It's important to know, Nick, that in the future, kinky nun videos are still going to be like a section on what's the Eden Universe equivalent of Pornhub, where I assume it's something like
So it was
like
it's
like
B
wank.
Cube instead of Pornhub. It's B Cube rather instead of YouTube.
Maybe
So,
like Wank Box,
something like that. Wank Nexus.
Wank Nexus. All right, so he's like, "Did you ever going on Wank Nexus? And you seen the sexy nun videos on there?" So the healing spell that she does heals all the women who have been turned to stone by a league.
Makes it easy.
And all of them are freed. And they're like, wow, it's a miracle. Very, very good.
And of course, immediately one of them goes, "Why am I naked? Where am I?"
Yeah, well, they had to ask that. So Jin
Hold
is, like,
on.
walking away. Okay.
Hold on. I can't let this go. So Rebecca says, as she looks around at all this is happening, she says, "The statues are all turning back." And then she says, "Wow, it's a miracle." Like,
Yeah.
she goes, "Wow, period.
Wow.
It's a miracle,
It's a
period." While
miracle.
looking like this. Wow, it's a miracle.
All these women, the hundreds, maybe thousands who we thought
She
were
saved
consigned
all
to a
of their
life of
lives,
stones.
reversed the petrification process from a madman who wanted to use them as furniture, and is saving everyone right at the last minute. Wow, it's a miracle. Hook this woman up with Ichigo at the end of Bleach. They're meant for each other.
So Jin's like, all right, well, let's get out of here. And then, the one who's not Jin, who is part of the
Mustacheless
group.
guy who
Yeah.
is part of the slavers, who is
Yeah.
not.
So he gets
So-
out. Presumably, I mean, we don't see it, but the presumption is he just leaves to never be seen again because he wasn't important. So who knows if he'll get his comeuppance from being an integral part of the sex trafficking.
Right.
But then Shiki, to the other member of the sex trafficking slave trade, is like, "Good fight, man. Catch you again later."
It was cool fighting you, Mr. Slaver.
They're like,
I can tell that you're an honorable guy, Mr. Kidnapped Underage Girls.
"Can't wait to maybe next time we'll have a race."
It just like turns into like Diddy Kong Racing, but with Eden Zero characters. But if you lose to Whizpig, then he just takes all of the women to be his sex furniture.
Well, shouldn't have lost that race. I'll get you next time, though. I'm gonna train even harder.
It still plays all the same wacky soundtrack stuff, though. So if you lose, it's just like.
There's a box full of women. You just see their hands hanging out, like, "Oh!" So Jin walks over to the fake sister and starts like stomping on her face because he's like, "You lied to me. All the despicable things I did because I was gonna save clean." And she's like, "No, I still have my powers left. I can help your friend." She's like, he crushes her face, like literally just breaks her, and he's like, "Clean's my sister. Whew, I have no friends. Stare in the middle distance."
Okay. I understand. Okay. If you hadn't actually read this chapter, if I hadn't actually read this chapter and just like read a summary of it, this part would be like, okay, that's a good idea. Set up this rival character. Don't immediately just have him join Shiki's crew at the end of the arc. Have him come back and continue to be Shiki's rival, and then eventually work towards it while revealing more of his motivation and seeing what makes him tick. That's basic stuff. for, shonen series have a well-established rival and wait a little while, let it simmer for a bit before it's like, now he's a good guy. But the execution of this was so fanficky. Like, this is like, I only followed you because of Clean. It's like, all right, who's Clean? That's
Clean
cool.
is my sister,
and I have no friends.
I was like, ooh, I gotta be careful reading this chapter with all the edges here.
Hang on. I don't want to make it too subtle about what's driving this guy to do bad things.
I hope he gets redeemed.
I only do bad things because I care about my sister who is sick.
I kidnapped women and sold them into slavery for my little sister. She'll be so proud of me when she's better. I have no friends. Oh my god, it's fucking stupid. Anyway, they cut to the outside. There's a bunch of chaos happening because everyone's like, "Oh right, the fucking space or the time dragon is coming to fucking eat us." So they talk about how there's all these crowds happening. All the women are saved. And Rebecca is like, we need to go back in and save him because Shiki's my friend. And they kind of do a small snapshot of the different people. And there's actually some people who are like, I'm not going to leave. I kind of like that because, like, even when, like, a Category 5 hurricane's coming, there's some people who are just like, nah, I grew up in this house. I'm going to die in this house. And they're like, yes, you will die in this house if you don't leave. Because there's some people who are like, time dragon's coming. They're like, I don't know. Maybe I'll get to be 12 years old again. That'd be pretty sweet. Like, that's not how it works. But whatever. And the last shot is we see the time dragon coming. And then Sister's like, yeah, you get me those coordinates to Pino? Well, they say we have 10 minutes till the chronophage eats us all. Ain't that exciting? Ha ha ha. And then different characters react to it.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. Homura specifically says, I shall not say aloud, but you are adorable.
I actually kind of quite like Sister. I mean, she has that kind of attitude about her that's like, if Kana were strong enough and important enough to be a main cast member in Fairy Tail, where she has that very different personality type where she's, she's very boastful and confident and playful and stuff. And I think that that's a bit of a breath of fresh air among the rest of this cast of weird perverts. So I kind of actually like her so far. I'm sure that she's going to be ruined in less than three chapters, but for now, I actually like her. The rest of this chapter though is so bad. It's just so badly written in so many different ways, and it's so weird to say that like it seems amateurish for the third big series coming from Hero, a guy who's been doing this type of manga for so long, so many times, and it feels like he's only like 10 chapters into his first manga with some of the weird, just blunt way of putting different things.
He's like a veteran of what has to be like 20 years now, I think. Maybe like somewhere around that range.
Right around there.
And his art's incredible. It continues to get better and better. There's so many intricate character designs, and I still don't know how he draws.
And look at how many cleavage shots he managed to squeeze into this chapter.
It's astonishing. It's really an art in and of itself. Like her face should be the only thing we see, but somehow her one tit's gonna get up there into the shot. But yeah, I mean we're seeing a lot of very novel. Honestly, this is one of the least offensive chapters. I find this chapter more amusing.
Oh yeah, there's no weird sex stuff in this, honestly.
Like it's not
so that's nice.
It's just amusing. Like I can't help but be charmed by him being like, "Hey man, we'll get you around sometime." And it's like, wait, isn't this the guy who tried to kidnap a woman in front of you? Like, this isn't your Shadow the Hedgehog. You're not going to, like, see him again running down the road and you're like, there's my rival. It's like, I feel like you should call the police.
I feel like instead, I mean, you could have the same sentiment be carried across if Shiki weren't going like, let's fight again, buddy. If instead he were just like, we'll fight again one day. And that's it. That sense of, like, combat respect, but you still kidnap my friend, so I don't really like you,
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of an oddity of the situation. I don't know. That's a chapter. Let's move on to like the 8 jump starts, or not jump starts, but series that were jump starts that now just occupy our regular stuff.
Right. We're gonna move into Chainsaw Man, Chapter 5, A Way to Touch Some Boobs.
I didn't pay attention to the chapter title when I read this.
Our hero's got to team up with the devil girl named Power, and they have different motivations because Power just wants to like fight people, and she's like, they aren't coming across anyone, and she blames herself because she's so powerful. Because she used to be a greatly feared devil before she was a fiend, and she's like, I'll bet all of them are scared, and so they're hiding away from me. And Hayakawa was apparently to blame for the two of them being partnered up. So, what is it? Daiki, whatever. He's like, God damn it, he probably teamed us up so that I wouldn't be able to prove myself and show what I've got. But at that moment, Power's like, I smell blood, and just runs off, goes leaping off the side of the roof, pulls out a mallet from nowhere, and smashes this weird worm thing, which is identified as a sea cucumber devil. And they get in trouble for this because at the moment the devil was engaged with a civilian hunter who was like putting in a call, I guess staking claim to it in a fucking phone booth. And so they get reprimanded for this. And then they come to an understanding because they argue over like who is to blame over this, and freaking Power's lying and saying like, oh, he told me to crush the thing. But eventually they go into like a shop, and he's like, maybe this isn't the time for me to be thinking about touching boobs. There's some important stuff here. Like, I'm not going to be able to even have soft drinks anymore if I can't work with this girl. And so Power goes, well, you know what? I hate humans. Not because they did anything to me. It's just a devil instinct. See, I hate devils too. A devil made off with my pet, Meowie. Makima caught me before I could get Meowie back. Meowie might already be dead, but I can't give up. So she's got a kitty that she's looking for, Chris. That's fine.
I'm very happy.
She's looking for. Then the dude's like, well, I don't like cats. That's stupid. But I would do anything to touch some boobs, though.
I like that she has no. She's like, all right. I don't know what that means, but all right.
He then goes on to say, it's like, no, if it was a dog, I might get it. It's like, okay, makes sense. He has a chainsaw dog living inside of him. Sure, whatever. Then Power's like, what if I said I'd let you touch my chest if you got Meowie back from that devil for me? And he just looks at her and is like, damn that devil! How dare they kidnap a poor cat! I'll murder that devil! And that's the end of the chapter.
I kind of love this chapter in a way.
It's just fuck.
It's so stupid, but I'm kind of becoming enamored with it. Like, I love this scene. Look, Nick, I play barbarians a lot when I play D&D because I love that moment of just running in and murdering everything. And there's that moment when Power jumps off, and there's this great, cause especially works great with the reader, because you see the page of the guy in the phone booth, and he's just like, yeah, it's a sea cucumber devil, back up. And the next page is just the action shot of Power having completely pulverized it and blood spattering everywhere. And then the next shot's her like laughing maniacally. It's like, I did it, blood for me, the glory is mine. And I'm like, I might make a D&D character based on that now. I don't know. It's very stupid. It is very, very stupid, but even the weirdness about him being like, I can't stop thinking about touching boobs. Like, just how serious he gets when she's like, if you help me find my lost cat, I'll let you touch my boobs. And I'm crushing the can and going, those monsters! I don't know. It's very dumb.
So I'm done with Chainsaw Man.
Okay.
This chapter broke me. It's too stupid. He's too unlikable. I can't with this anymore. I'm done. Understand. No more Chainsaw Man.
It's gone. Oust. Out of the podcast. Get out of here.
if it sticks around for a long time, maybe we'll go back to it after it's more established. But for right now, it's just like no, I don't like this guy. So done.
Very understandable.
So
We need we need like a fucking action effect. Like when we're done with the
you need
series,
a
we're
big
like
red button or something.
chunk chunk, and then like a big axe comes down. It's like, "Ah!" And you hear like the characters in the manga screaming like, "No, don't give
Or
it
like
to me!"
Power comes out and smashes it with her hammer.
Oh fuck yeah! And then screams about the blood she's just been covered with.
Yeah. Hellwarden Higuma, Chapter 3, Life Force, Part 1. We open up this chapter with a sequence of this weird bird devil calling out to these like kind of hypnotized masses of old people. And then this weird white energy comes out of their eyes and mouths for the bird devil thing to eat. And that's basically it before we cut away to Ayaha, who is on the temple grounds, bored out of her mind because nothing's really been happening recently. We get introduced to a new character, Granny Usa, who has some sweets that she asks to take to Higuma, who she refers to as Little Bear. And she says, "Yes, and I made enough for everyone to enjoy." And she's like, what the hell does she mean, everyone? She gets over to where Higuma is, and there is this weird kind of ninja, kind of assassin-looking guy who is perched in a tree, and he's like, "Hey, look, I look like a ninja." And Higuma's laughing with him, and they're just joking around a bit. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And this guy is introduced as Kobata, who is one of the Bunreisha, one of the guys that are responsible for looking after, helping out with the Hell Wardens. They were one of the shadowy guys that were near the scene back when Higuma went on the first mission recently. So they, have some sweet. They have some sweets, and then Higuma actually points out there's a little girl there who is kind of hiding away from them around a corner. Her name is Kaori, and she actually witnessed her grandmother being called to that scene we saw earlier with the devil who was eating their life force. And when Kaori tried to ask her grandmother about it later, she didn't answer. She was very silent, had little to say about anything. So Kaori, after quite a bit of silence, nervously asks for Higuma to save her grandmother. And Higuma is very friendly, approaches her and says, "What do you like about her?" And she's like, "Oh, she's really nice." And Higuma's like, "Yeah, my grandmother's nice too." And but Kaori says that she can't remember things either that they had discussed recently. And Higuma says, "It sounds like her memories were taken too, but don't worry, I'll bring them back too. I'll bring her back to normal in no time. So don't worry, I promise." And he makes a little pinky swear with the girl, and it's very cute. So Higuma opines that the girl's grandmother is probably possessed by a Sudama, the same way that Ayaha was in the first chapter. And Ayaha's like, "Oh, well, you can handle that, right?" And Higuma says, "Yeah, sure, but it's their master that's the real problem." He's basically, feasted on these old people's life force, so he's got to take care of that thing. So, and Kubata and Higuma explained to Ayaha that life force is the biggest reason that fugitive spirits possess the living. Ayaha wants to come along to see what Higuma does about this, but Higuma actually says no, because it's really, really dangerous. But Kubata is just like, "Hey, let's secretly go along and so you can see." It's like, this guy's going to die, isn't he? He's got no face. I do not believe this man is going to survive for very long, honestly.
Maybe he reveals his face and that's what keeps him alive.
Oh, it's like revealing your name in Order of the Stick.
Exactly. They're like, you didn't have a face before, but now you do. You need to live. Your design is good.
Kabata says that, like, you only need to really actually listen to what Higuma says. So 60, 70% of the time, But anyway, hey, look, I know that this isn't just simple curiosity because you were saved by a Hell Warden, so want to know what exactly a Hell Warden is. You want to know what kind of people they are. And anyway, having your help here can't actually hurt. So they actually settle in and get ready because Higuma is all set to take on this creature as it flies in, illuminated by the moon, to end the chapter. If the jump start had ended here, I would have been really pissed off because it's like, I don't even know what happens next. So
now you will, Nick. Nothing will stop you.
Unless the series gets canceled in 16 weeks. So
well, I mean,
please don't let that happen. I actually am quite enjoying this series. So
all right, let's move on to Lation Process 4, Hacker Neo versus Hacker Lemming.
Hacker!
And I was very confused because I think when this chapter first came out, the pages were out of order, or it may just be that I have not been able to follow it correctly. But anyway, the main thing is that they realized, oh shit, Saki, is it Saki? Yeah, Saki is playing the Lemming game, and they need to save her because on day 50, the order will
tomorrow.
Will be to kill yourself, and it's day 49 the game, so they have to find him and stop him tonight. So of course, Neo, the great hacker he is, starts hacking, and he finds it. He's like, oh, it's a server from the
Hold on.
Okay.
I'm just going to officially announce that I'm going to like start a counter starting right here of times that Neo says he's got to do something and then just starts typing and goes, did it.
It might get very high.
It's just such a I'm a hacker cliche, you know.
It's interesting.
I'm going to have to hack this. Done.
It's become one of the more interesting things, I think, because so few people understand how computers work that most people have just accepted that like typing on a computer is shorthand for hacking. But like if you try to do it for anything else, like if you were like, I play football professionally, and you saw a guy just throw footballs at a field goal post over and over again, and people were like, he's playing football
really quickly.
That's how you do it. You're like, no, it's not how football's played. So it's a server on the Tama Kyoru College campus.
Tama Kyoryu.
Yeah. And like a cleaning guy goes by and he's like, wow, this server's making a lot of heat. Oh, what's going on? And then a associate professor comes in.
He inspects the servers. Yeah. He's a maintenance guy.
And the associate professor Anzai comes in and he's just like, oh, we're being hacked. Oh, what's happening? And all
I like how guys got pulling off the, I wear a coat, but I'm not putting my hands through the sleeves thing, but with a lab coat, which just makes it seem even more difficult for it to stay on. If he weren't wearing that lanyard, it would be flying off his shoulders, dude. That lanyard's the only thing holding it down.
What I like the most is that he has a lanyard, and that's like the tie that clasps his coat together and makes it like a cape.
Yeah, it wouldn't be held together around his neck otherwise.
Yeah, it's a very, very awesome design. So they're like, oh, the servers are being cracked with all this information. Oh, and then they're down, and it's like, what? Basically, what happens is they explained it. He was trying to DDoS them, and another person took it down. It was thwarted by another hacker who
Well, Neo says that, so this is what, a server does. They have that brief explanation, and he says the data for the Lemming game can't be accessed anymore. So the other two are like, well, why'd you do that? And he says, I didn't do it. Someone else did it while I was trying to look for information.
So he's like, someone was hacking them on the back end, and he's like, oh, wow, what could this be? But he explains, he's like, yeah, but I know that it was like he's sort of explained like, yep, we can't get into it now, it's game over. And everyone's like, is there nothing we could do? And he's like, no, because we just succeeded. I saw while I was going through that no one else was in the system because I could see if someone else had hacked their way into it. So we know for a fact now that whoever the intruder is in the mastermind of the Lemming game is one of the people, one of the people who's familiar with the servers over at that college campus. So now it's up to you two to infiltrate the campus and look at the roster for yourselves. Figure out who this person is, and now it's your job to do it. And they kind of note that, like, yeah, the hacker used it to try to keep us out, but what he did was just made the security on that campus crumble beneath his feet. And you see it actually crumbling. He loses a sandal to it. And he explains, like, this town needs only one baddie, me, and they run off. And,
they say that they established that most likely Anzai is Lemming. And when he was like, someone's hacking our servers, he was not actually, like, monitoring it. He was just like, oh, okay. The trap that I set in place to cover my tracks worked.
Yeah.
So
he sends them out, and he just says this last line where he's like, it's going to be okay, Minai. We're going to win because cats eat rats. The evil guy's a rat.
Right, and she's a cat because of the cat symbol of her dance crew.
Yeah. Cats eat rats.
I will say,
I guess lemmings too.
Right. I actually quite like this chapter. Because I mean, not everything that Neo says, I'm certain is not 100% true all of the time. Like, I feel as though there are going to be some places where they don't put, the internet servers on the same server as the security monitors. But the way that he put it, it all made sense. It makes sense within the context of the explanation he gave, basically. And that's good. And also, this is a sign that, like, oh, so the others are going to get a chance to do things because Neo is only good for hacking stuff. So if there's a situation where he can't hack or he needs someone to do something, on site, then that's what Minai and Yuko are going to be there for. They'll have a role to play going forward, and that's very encouraging.
Absolutely.
So this is probably, I think, my favorite chapter of the series so far, and it gives me some hope for the future.
Yep. What chapter were we on? Because my mouse just clicked and closed every fucking webpage.
The next one is actually We Never Learn.
All right, fine. I had that one.
I can do Dr. Stone before we do that if you want.
No, I have We Never Learn
okay.
right now. I just have to open everything else while we're doing Dr. Stone.
Gotcha.
Right. So We Never Learn, chapter 94. Sometimes a predecessor does X to a beloved object.
No longer questions, apparently.
No, now they're chapters. Yeah, very interesting. So we opened this one with Asi looking at a fishy doctor mascot known commonly as Doha-chan. And it's a giant pufferfish with, like, the doctor's headband with, like, the mirror on it and a little stethoscope. And it's flopping around because it's supposed to be in the water, but it's not. So I feel like it's in pain, but it's very cute, so nobody seems to mind. And Asi is very dismissive of it. She's
Asumi.
Like, yeah, Asumi, sorry. Asi is Food Wars, that's it. Asami is like, why do people like this? I don't
Asumi.
get it. Fuck you. I'm going to call her what I want now. Quidgy bro. Quang Quang is like I need these goddamn things at the start of the chapters that remind me of characters' names. What is it? Asumi?
Asumi.
Asumi. I don't think you're right. That's got to be wrong.
Or Ashumi is like her nickname. I think it might be something else, but everyone calls her Ashumi.
Maid Girl, which is not wrong.
Maid Girl who wants to be Doctor Girl.
Yeah, Doctor Girl aspirational. She finds one in a store, and she's like, "Oh my god, it's so cute!" But then she's like, "Oh my god, is this who I've really become?" And then she sees the price tag, and she's like, "Whoop, done."
I looked up the price of that thing. That's $170.
Yeah, it's an expensive fucking plushie.
No,
So she and Uega go out. They're shopping, and he's like, I need some mechanical pencil for my graphite. And they go in. They see that this place has a raffle going on where you can win a Doha-chan if you win this raffle, and it's just it's like 500 yen for every 500 yen you spend gets you one chance. So they both like Uega isn't entering it. He just already bought graphite, so he's entered into it. And then she buys something so that she can enter in it. And we smash cut. We see.
She buys like a bunch of worthless stuff so that she'll get more raffle tickets because it's dependent upon how much you spend at the store.
Yeah.
So
she won a bunch of tissues, and then he won, of course, Doha-chan. So she's like,
How
oh.
does this boy not have any money with the kind of luck that he has? Gamble!
So he's like, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of embarrassing carrying this giant, like, puffy fish around. Do you want it? And she, of course, is like, no, I don't want it. I don't want that ugly thing, harumph. But then she starts to do her, like, but if you really insist, until fucking Fumino shows up and is just like, oh my god, a big Doha-chan! Those are so cool. And he's like, do you want it? She's like, sure! You just see main girl's just like, no! What's happening? And there's a little moment where Yuiga's like, free at last! Oh, to carry it. And Fumina's like, oh, it's another present from him. And
smells like him.
And then Mako goes up and is just like, you're obsessed with it, aren't you? She's like, what? No, what are you talking about? She's like, just kind of noting, may I? And she's like, oh, you want this? Oh, I mean, I can't. Yuiga gave it to me, so it'd be weird. She's like, oh,
That's not quite what's going on. What's going on is Asumi is trying to say, like, oh, you're obsessed, aren't you? And she's referring to the Doha-chan. But Fumino thinks, oh, she knows that I've got a crush on Yuiga, or she's still in denial about that. So she's like, so I'm, I couldn't admit it. I'm so obsessed, I can't focus on it. And so she's like, is she talking about a crush on Nariyuki?
So she gets the stuffed fish, and she apologizes because she just played the shit out of Fumino and got it. So Fumino leaves, and Hey Girl's kind of like, I kind of feel bad. I ended up.
And Yuiga's like, you could have just said that you wanted it.
So she, of course, plays it like, you want a kiss? And he's like, what? No. Anyway, then a little kid shows up, and the kid's like, I arbitrarily need a gift from my person, but I lost it, and I need it now. So it's a moment when Hey Girl gets to be like, here, you can have the
Look at that kid in his fucking sweater vest. He deserves to drown.
Yeah, fuck this kid. And he's like, bye.
Also, he climbs over the bridge in a very, unnecessary way. Like, you can see that he could go underneath the top rung of the top barrier of the bridge, but he decides to climb over the top instead of climbing between them. Well, and it's only because of that they're able to grab him.
Well, you see, Nick, his favorite...
He was just trying to gain sympathy. He wasn't really going to swim after the gift.
Well, you see, Nick, his favorite
fucking con artist.
His favorite wrestler is Kane, and Kane always enters by going over the top rope. He's just trying to imitate his favorite wrestler, Kane.
No. See, if you were actually imitating Kane, then he would have leaned backwards against it and fallen over the top.
That's old school Kane. He didn't watch back then.
Kane has the most badass way of getting out of a ring ever. Seriously.
Anyway, she gives a Doha-chan to the kid. And she says, like, yeah, I don't want to be the kind of doctor that leaves a kid crying. And they go back to their study, and she's, of course, really kind of like,
$170, stupid woman.
She's like dead in the eyes. She's like going through her fucking chemical memorization, and they're just like, oh, she's so sad. And then Yuiga shows up, and he's like, here, I got this for you. And it's a very, very tiny Doha-chan. And he's like,
by hand.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't make, I didn't buy it, I didn't do the greatest job, but I hope you like it. And she's very happy because it's a sweet gift just for her that she made. And of course, she teases him some more, being like, you really want to kiss me, don't you? He's like, stop it. I'm not falling for it. I know you long enough now to know that you're just fucking with me. Mm-hmm. And then the final chapter or final panel gag is that Yuiga's sister was the one the little kid was buying the got the Doha-chan for. So now Yuiga has it again.
Yep. And also, it's like really weird because the narration says the next day, the shocking truth is revealed. The little kid got the Doha-chan for another little kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
It's very cool.
Also, is oh, okay, never mind. That was something on my screen. I should take better care of my computer. Yeah. Okay. It was a chapter. There was a little bit of sweetness to it, though. I do like the whole well, it made you happy, so I made you a little thing. So hopefully this makes you a little happy. So Kaminami Asumi is her name. Kominami Asumi. There we go.
Asumi, okay.
Yeah. All right. Move on to Dr. Stone. Z equals 89. Adventurers. This is a pretty intense chapter, but there's not a whole lot of detail that I really want to get into. It's Chrome and Senku and Ryusui flying through the sky on their hot air balloon, and they're headed forward towards Ishigami Village, which is only going to take them about 2 hours to get to, which shocks Chrome because like that would take us, like 2 days power walking. But it's like, that's just how fast that wind is. There's some tension between Chrome and Ryusui because Ryusui refers to himself as a pro-adventurer, and Chrome's like, "Oh, are you now? You don't seem to really know the layout of the land very well. Oh, a real pro-adventurer who has surveyed with his own 2 feet would be able to sense this much. You're just always in your boat, though. You're the amateur here." And it's like, kiss. Like, come on, just make out and get it out of your system. Just fuck right there in the basket while Senku watches.
I was like, poor Senku.
He might be into it. You don't know.
I'm going to assume not, but maybe.
Probably not, but I don't know.
You never know.
He doesn't seem to be very concerned with romance or sex of any kind, like considering that he got hitched with a hot wife and it was just like, anyway, divorce, bye. So
Nick, he's only sexually attracted to science, I believe.
Yeah, equals MC squared, yes. There's a giant storm cloud that approaches them, a freaking cumulonimbus, which is designed to look like this weird snake dragon thing, bearing down on them. Unfortunately, they're basically fucked in terms of the way that they're going to use stuff. Because Chrome thinks like, oh, we should prepare for an emergency landing. And he's like, yeah, we'll pop open the top of the balloon, lay out the hot air, and drop. But Senku already realizes, actually, the top of the balloon's already popped. If you pull any more, it'll just rip the fabric, and we're going to just plummet. So we can't do that. Turns out one of the birds that they were seeing earlier actually put a small hole in the balloon, and if they open up another one, they're fucked. So all three of them have different reactions as the cumulonimbus cloud bears down on them. The maw of the creature basically is going to gobble them up. And so Senki's like, what am I going to do? What can science do for this? Ryusui just like stares death in the face and is like, yes! Basically. But Chrome thinks like, how are we going to escape? And then he realizes, well, wait, people are actually quite weak in nature. If you try and turn your back on a threat and run, then it'll just overwhelm you and get you. And he equates it to like, if a bear catches you, comes across you, if you try to run away, it will outrun you. But if you stand your ground and fight, you can scare it away. So with brains and heart, you can beat this fear.
Which is interestingly, distinctly not true for certain animals.
That's true. Yes.
There's not a universal, like, always punch a creature if you see it.
If you come across bees, for example, run. Just run. Keep running until they don't want to defend their hive anymore. Like, but mostly mammals, you do have to just like scare them into leaving you alone. So, anyway, so Chrome says we'll just have to use our brains and heart, plunge into it, and pop out the other side. And as he prepares to do this, he then turns and is like, "Wait, is that a bad idea?" But Senku and Ryusui say, "No, actually, that's probably the best idea. Let's do it." And Senku throws in the last of their revival fluid into the balloon to rocket them straight through the cloud. Senku falls out of the basket, manages to catch himself on a handle, and he just is swinging freely from it as they go. Ryusui has this weirdly badass moment where he tosses his tricorner cap and uses that to find where the updraft is. And it's like, I found it, the path through the clouds. And then he says to Chrome, put all the fuel that we've got in there, let's go. And then as they rocket through the cloud, he says, in this world, even the sky is mine to command. Cool stuff. They get through the cloud.
A very interesting point has been brought up in the chat by Josh V. Cloudy and Storm Dragon, though, cannot be destroyed by battle.
That's correct. Maybe they managed to do something in order to shift it into defense mode.
Okay.
Because then it would self-destruct. Very good stuff. Usually I have to be the one to bring that up. So, they manage to get through to the other side. There is a quasi 2-page spread where Ukyo and Kohaku are down in the village, and they look up and see the balloon passing overhead, while a rainbow is also over them because they made it through the storm. Hooray! And Chrome and Ryusui have bonded as a result of this. They, kind of do the backhanded high five, and Senku's like, "Yeah, it's great and all, but if you don't help me up, I'm going to die."
I do like this chapter. I mean, first and foremost, I love when Dr. Stone turns normal things into these crazy, like, fantasy death machines. Like, it's just a cloud and it's turned into a dragon that they had to escape out of the mouth of. It's just like when the carbon monoxide was, or the sulfur, rather, was the death poison, like, angel lady. So I love that. I do like you say showing why he's skilled here. I kind of wish it was, honestly, more about him specifically, because he's such an asshole that I really do need more to understand why we like want to follow him. But I do like he has a moment here with with Chrome, and we have this cool little scene between them.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like normally the stuff that I like about Dr. Stone is in the small details. A minor character just getting a small bit of character development, a little joke, a little detail in the background. But this one, it's like, no. I mean, like, just the whole sequence is really cool. And I really did quite like it. I love the depiction of the storm as this weird monster that's going to swallow them all, and then they burst out of the back of its skull. And cool moments from both Chrome and Ryusui to get, and the bond form between them to get used to the idea of Ryusui is going to have to be an ally of theirs. So, all right.
All right, let's talk Seven Deadly Sins, chapter 295, That Which Gathers. And, whoo boy, we're getting right into the, maybe the final arc of things at this point. I'm not sure.
Possibly.
A lot of stuff's happening here.
What happens in this chapter.
So, last time, we know King and Diane and Elizabeth and
everyone, all that group.
Fucking the entire team is flying over to, like, try to intercept this thing before the quote-unquote first demon kills Merlin and Escanor.
It's a cool shot at the very beginning of the chapter on the cover page of all of them rushing towards the scene in all their different ways.
And we see the spear, which name I'm never going to remember. Chastafol. It's starting to get chopped up by the first demon. Like, he's crazy strong. So, he transforms it into the sunflower form. He's like, you get out of here. And, like, it's incredible power. But it gets canceled by Zeldris. And Zeldris is like, you handle that guy, or you handle killing Escanor and Merlin. I'll take care of that guy. So it's kind of a divide and conquer strategy they're working on. And we cut inside, and we see that Hendrickson and Gilthunder are still there. And Hendrickson's like, Gilthunder, get out of here. He's like, I can't abandon Margaret. And we see that Ludashel, who is in Margaret's body, is stunned about the truth of Mael, and keeps thinking, like, I thought for sure there was no way he could have been killed. I'm so shocked. I can't even walk or fly or anything. I must look so pathetic to you. Just laugh at me. And Hendrickson's like, you poor thing, and kind of like, like massages the side of her face, and then activates Purge and fucking launches the Archangel out of Margaret's body.
Fucking awesome.
And we see the real Ludashel there laying down on the ground, and Hendrickson's like, get out of here, Gilthunder. Take Margaret and go. And Gilthunder's like, no, come with us. And he's like, I've committed too many crimes. I'm going to stay behind. I can't leave him like this. My father's last words to me were, I'll always watch over you. So Gilthunder gets out of there. And Ludashel's like, all right, you got me. I'm ready to do whatever you want. And Hendrickson says, use me as your vessel. Use up this soul and this life. I'm not afraid of death. So you should be able to use your strength to your heart's content. So it looks like Ludashel is going to be taking over Hendrickson, and Hendrickson's going to go into this. So let's see what happens there. We cut back. There's a bunch of action scenes going on. King in this perfect form of his is very strong. But Zeldris is like, you guys aren't the only thing that's on its way here. And that's when Mael sort of explains that, oh, right. So the 4 commandments I expelled earlier, they're apparently gaining sentience and are drawn to the other ones. So the 5 that are already inside of Melodius right now, and then the 4 from Zeldris, or from Esterosa /Mael, But then Diane's like, well, that's fine because Merlin has Melascula's commandment, right? And then we like,
and where is Merlin?
we like hard cut over, and the one from Melascula is just like, F this, and bolts out of there. And she's like, well, shit. So all of those 5 commandments are gathered together and are launching straight towards the cocoon with Melodius's body in it. And we hear Elizabeth pleading, don't do it. Zeldra saying it's finally over. And the last shot we see is of the 5 commandments headed towards cocoon and the potential birth of a new demon lord.
Yeah. So pretty intense stuff ramping up here. I really am excited to see what happens next. It's going to be one of those things where it's like, oh, is Melody's going to be taken over by the demon lord, or where is his conscience coming back, and all that stuff. And in the middle of that, hey, some cool stuff happened in the background. And this is one of the things that I don't think that we quite make note of with Seven Deadly Sins as much as we probably should, which is with the secondary cast, if they're there for a reason. The entire reason that we had that whole subplot going on with Hendrickson and Ludishel was because he was playing the long game, getting ready to get close so that he could actually do something and save Margaret. And he did it. So awesome.
And then he's going to offer himself up to be the host for Ludishel in this very important fight. So it's a very cool scene. An MVP worthy performance. You could
spoilers. He's mine too. All right, the Promised Neverland, chapter 118, meeting. Start off with, we get a cool cover color page with a bit of a celebration of the anime coming out with the main characters from the very early part of the series basically reciting lines. Cool stuff. I like that. So the whole mini arc of saving Chris, it's been resolved now. They got the medicine and got back safely. Hooray!
I'm alive!
I love the sequence of lines that we get on this page where we've got Emma going, "Thank goodness, Chris," and then Gilda going, "Good job, Anna." It's like you could have skipped the last 3 chapters and just like had this happen and be like, and you would have accomplished things like, "Thank goodness, Chris is okay. Good job saving the day, Anna."
Thank goodness you were here, Anna. I don't know what we would have done without you.
And that was why we had this happen. It wasn't very convincing, but that's why it happened. So, a couple of days of traveling go by. They come across these massive trees in the forest, like mountain-sized trees. They are ridiculously huge. And the kids are all completely blown away by this. The base is apparently located right in the middle of this. Ray is looking around as they going by and is like, huh, there are like wild demon tracks still here, though. So how could there possibly be a base here that houses hundreds of humans with all these weird thick trees and everything? Hayato runs ahead, and I mean runs ahead. It turns out that he's got like weird super speed, and Ray's taken aback by this, and then he realizes, oh yeah, back when he came, he really came out of nowhere in order to find me when we were running away from those demons. Jin and Zazie stick with the group as they approach, though. Basically, Hayato is heralding their arrival, and they get inside, and it's basically like this entire... It's one of those kind of like a village built in the trees sort of thing, but it's more along the lines in some way of like a village built into the mountains because it's inside of the trees. They're like massive hollowed out tree with the town inside of it. It's a cool visual. Everyone's blown away by just how much there is in this world. There's so much stuff, so many supplies, so many people, people who are very happy with their state of being. And so Emma's like, oh my God, we found a paradise that Mr. Minerva built. But Ray is concerned seemingly by a couple of things. Like he pays attention, for example, to the marking that one of the escaped humans has on their hand and takes note of it. Doesn't really say what he's thinking, though. But Hayato calls over to Emma and says, hey, the boss says he wants to meet you. So Emma goes off along with Hayato and Zazie to finally meet Mr. Minerva, and we get a montage of scenes of all the times that they discover William Minerva, wanting to go and meet him, the message that they received from him, congratulating them on their arrival, and Emma thinks, because of you, we were able to escape, and she takes out the pen with the message on it and holds it with her, and she also clutches the pendant that she's got around her neck, and she says, thanks to you, we had the last 2 years. And Hayato announces her arrival, sends her into the room alone, and who should it be but, of course, it's Norman. Not really a surprise. Not every twist in a series needs to be super surprising. This makes sense. And I do really like the way that the final 2 pages are contrasted with each other. With Emma, you can see the ways that she has changed over time. She's got, the little tokens of her journey. She's crying, just like very silently crying. And then there's Norman on the other side. And weirdly enough, he looks way different than Emma does. Like, you can tell that it's him, but he looks so different. And I like the way that there are just, like, for example, like, you can't see the number on his neck because his collar is so high, but you can see Emma's number. And he looks like he has aged like 10 years somehow. So, Norman is William Minerva. There you go.
There you go. Big chapter.
Yeah. And I'm sure that we're going to get a lot of explanation in the coming ones. But for right now, it's like, okay, yep. We kind of saw this coming. I hope that there is a really good explanation behind it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's talk real quick about Black Clover. Yeah, where the fuck was the page? Page 188, Why I Lived This Long. Henry's like, oh, like when I was a kid, like I was failing and I needed magic, and my family were dickheads who were like, this is a disgusting child, so they threw me away.
Noble suck!
Yeah, I'm a dickhead, and they threw him, and they put him in a house which stored magic energy, and he made a bunch of friends, so they fly at him. This is the present now. They fly at him in a ship made out of mirrors. They convert it into mirrors so the mirrors can't hurt it, and then they get up there, and they smash him, and Henry drops, and he sucks up all of Gauch's power.
Like, so when I'm outside of the fortress, then my magic absorption is way stronger, so I'm just going to suck it all out of you and defeat you.
Like, whoop, and he takes all of it, and he's like, now I can die. But he's not going to, because they cover a disco ball with fucking poison and then turn it into pillows. And he's fine, and then Asta hits him with his sword that counters him. That's chapter.
You're missing some very important details.
I'm skipping a lot because we really don't have time for it. We have like 20 minutes left and 3 chapters to cover, so I'm abridging a lot.
I'm just really annoyed by part of this because
go for it. If you have something you want to say, by all means.
You get a flashback when Henry has decided he's going to kill himself. He's going to sacrifice himself in order to save Gauch. When Asta goes, "You're not done yet, Mr. Henry." We get a flashback to a time when Asta went to visit Henry. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm a new brigade member. And Captain Yami told me to come here. And don't worry, I don't have any magic." And they just have this long conversation. And Henry's like, "I hope I get to meet everyone one day." And Asta's like, "Oh, we'll be waiting for you. I bet it'll be more fun once you meet everyone in person." And Henry's like, "I don't want to die. I want to live with the rest of them." And Asta's like, "It's okay. We're going to save all of you. That includes you, Gauch." Okay. I want to explain something to you.
To me?
I want you... We're both MCU fans, right, Chris? Yes. Yeah, okay. Black Panther.
Okay.
Martin Freeman plays a role in that movie. It's a minor but important role. And towards the end of the movie, he looks like he might have to sacrifice himself in order to save Wakanda. Because he's got to use the remote control pilot ship in order to blow up one of the ships that's going to, break through the barrier and go and fuck up the world. So everyone tells him to, get out of the remote control room because they're targeting it now and he might die. But he's like, "No, I've got to do this." I want you to imagine if instead of being introduced to him early in the movie, T'Challa saving his life, and then deciding that he needs to stick around and help everyone when they, take T'Challa away in order to save Wakanda. If instead T'Challa gets, knocked out, goes into a coma, and everyone has to escape because they think he's dead. And randomly, going through their journey, they come across this random white guy He's like, "Hi, I'm Martin Freeman." I don't remember his character's name. Uh,
Agent Everett, I think.
I think that's right. And he says, "I'm Agent Everett, and I know King T'Challa from King College. We go way back. He's my friend, and I want to help. And I've always been here watching you." Now, even with that, you can still make his attachment to the character is interesting because, you have a little bit of time when they face dangers and he helps them out. And he's like, okay, an important ally in this time. Cool. I do care a little bit about you. But then T'Challa wakes up and he's like, Agent Everett from King College. We go way back, don't we? You're my best buddy. And then, but we don't see why they're best buddies or anything like that until it's time for Agent Everett to prove himself by flying the plane so that he can save Wakanda because they're good guys now. And when he's about to die, seemingly, he doesn't think about the adventures that he's had with Shuri and Okoye and all of them. He just thinks about that one conversation that he and T'Challa had at King College very, very briefly. And it's like, I'm glad that I have this friend that you know so much about our relationship with. It would suck, okay?
Fair. To be fair, though.
Not every character has to revolve around Asta, okay? That's all I'm saying.
No, and that makes a lot of sense. I would say, in fairness, I also did not care about Everett Ross dying. If he, the suspension of him dying.
But it would have been worse in that case.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. Look, I will say I would have liked this scene had it happened an arc or two after this. Because we just met Henry last year, at the start of last year. And he's not been an important character throughout this arc. He's popped up as they've kind of needed him. And it's in the same essential arc that he's been introduced. They're like, well, let's just close the 3-act structure of his narrative that we've kind of created by being like, oh, all of his friends accept him and he's going to die. But no, his friends want him to live. It'd be nice for this moment to happen later because I kind of question, what do you do with this character? It'd have been interesting if, Henry can't leave the base. He's too afraid to. That house kind of keeps him from just killing other people around him. But Henry's left the base 3 times in this battle already. He hasn't been inside a tiny little house the entire time or something. So it's just the weight's not there for this scene.
Yeah. All right. One Piece, chapter 929, Shogun of Wano, Kurozumi Orochi. The first thing that happens in this chapter is that we learn that Minatomo, the foreman that Franosuke is currently working for, because he thought that he had all the blueprints to Kaido's mansion, because he's the one who built Kaido's mansion. It's like, oh yeah, you wanted to see the layout of the Onigashima mansion. Well, turns out actually 10 years ago, I just talked into a pawn shop. And Frankie gets really pissed off, and he quits / is fired, and has to go and find out where the hell it is. He reports this to Kanjuro, and so he's like, okay, I'm just going to keep on trying to find it. He goes to the pawn shop where it was hawked to. It was sold to someone else. They gave it to someone else. It was stolen by someone else. And he just follows the line until he basically his lead completely runs dry because he knows that it was stolen by someone, but does not know who it was, just that they came from Curry. And at the ruins in Curry, Kinemon's there, and he reports via Denden Mushi saying I have no idea where it is. The plans to Kaido's mansion are just somewhere there, but I have no idea where. So, but Kinemon says, all right, thanks. Just assist in the other missions that are going on right now. So Kinemon is like, okay, well, who would want the plans to Kaido's mansion? Unless... In the meantime, Kinemon and a bunch of other people, but mostly the people working for Dogstorm, have been stealing shit and then leaving notes saying that it was the responsibility of the Atamayama Thieves Brigade. I'm sure that this can't possibly blow up in their faces, stealing stuff and then blaming someone else that they want to be their friend for it. Zoro is wandering around. He has gotten some food from a guy who's traveling with him, who I want to punch so badly.
Well, he's a sycophant, at least. So
his title is Sycophant, so he's also ugly as sin. Just saying. I don't even know what this guy. I think introduces what his actual title is, but who cares? I don't like him. I'm sure he'll be important later.
He's gonna have a heroic sacrifice in the middle
Yeah,
of the arc. You know
he's
he
gonna be
will.
gonna be the best character in 2 years' time. We cut to Orochi's castle, where these guys. I don't know if we're supposed to know who the hell they are.
Yeah, those are members of CP0.
Okay.
Which is the group that I believe Rob Lucci, I think
And
Kaku,
yeah.
Stussy, and I want to say Spam Dam might be part of them. I don't know if I don't think those specific members were supposed to know though.
They're all wearing weird masks, by the way, because oh yeah, CP9 used to wear a mask, didn't they?
Yeah, they wore masks when they went in when they were hiding their identity for a while and doing missions.
Right. But now everyone knows who they are anyway, so whatever. So Shogun Orochi says like, you guys are in a really weak position to bargain now, especially now that you've lost Doflamingo and the Arms Broker Joker. So the only thing that I want is an even greater power than what you have. So next time that I've asked for a battleship in return this time. The next time you come asking for help, though, it's going to cost you Dr. Vegapunk. And they're like, what? No! And he shoots one of them in the head. But it bounces off his mask. It's like, okay.
It's got intense. I do like that this guy's got that kind of fucking swagger to him.
We see what the guy looks like very shortly, but I do love the image of him immersed in shadows with these weird dragons emerging out of his body. Looks cool. And he says, hey, it's not possible I didn't ask if it was possible for you to turn over Vegapunk. You know that the country of Wano does not fear things like the celestial dragons and the Navy. All of you together could not bring our nation to its knees. I have Kaido backing me up. And the meeting ends. We don't really see what happens after that, but he goes off into his palace. All sorts of doors are open in his way. People are bowing to him. Food is presented to him, and he's like, I don't want that. We shall throw it away then, sir. It's a cool detail. It's like, he's just like, oh, yes, the finest chickens, lightly killed. Just realized that's dipped in boiler oil. I am not in a foul mood tonight. Ah, yes, sir. It's useless. Throw it away.
Burn it.
We have crispy vegetable. No! Fatty pike. I love pike. Even Komurasaki, who is there, is like, oh, I wanted to see you. It's like, as have I, my lord. And when he actually shows his face, he's a goofy looking boy. With those buck fucking teeth.
Well, it's like the inverse of buck teeth.
He's got these
like hippo
fangs,
chompers.
Yeah. With like 3 teeth between them too. It's weird. I swear, I thought that this guy, if it not for the fact that we saw Wapol earlier, I thought this guy might have supposed to have been Wapol. Like,
yeah, you would not be mistaken to be like, is that Wapol? Looks kind of like him. I like the design though; it's very cool. And I want to say his name's like Kyutamaru. One of the guys who's supposed to be very significant to all this is at the dinner as well. I don't know if the 2 guys to the right though were supposed to.
Quite a few of the people that we've been seeing through the course of this arc that are important figures are gathered in this area, and he's just like, everyone eat and drink to your heart's content. So, yeah. Then to close out the chapter, we see that Law has spotted someone coming, and he tells Sanji to hide, and Sanji's like, well, if it's just those guys looking for revenge, I'll just kick them again. And he's like, no, it's not them. I know these are folks who know who you are. And turns out that the Tobi Rappo have come to kill that Soba cook, Sanji, of course, among the 6 most powerful members of the group of headliners, and they've sent 2 of them, Drake and Page 1. Turns out that it's X-Drake and another member of the Animal Kingdom Pirates, Page 1, who, fuck X-Drake, look at this guy! He looks amazing!
His name is Page 1. I love One Piece because the characters sometimes have such odd names that they're so distinct and memorable. And I'm like, I'm either going to never forget Page 1 until the day I die, or every time I see this character, I'm going to be like, what's his name? And someone's going to be like, Page 1. And I'm like, you're fucking lying. There's no way his name is Page 1.
I love the way he looks, though. He's just this weird Spinosaurus with raggy hair on one side of his body.
He is pretty dope looking.
Yeah.
It's apparently a card game in Japan. Well, that's not going to help me at all.
And Basil Hawkins is there with them, saying that he's come in search of a particular man, and then this should be more than worth the reward of the mission alone. So, shit's looking pretty crazy with all these different supernovas gathered in one spot.
I feel like I have been greatly mistaken for a while now. Was it X-Drake who was the last member of the three supernova alliance?
I don't fucking remember.
I could have, like, from one reason I thought it was that he was with Kaido, but I must have been mistaken because X-Drake's there, so I don't know.
Right.
I'm probably mistaken. People have probably been screaming at me for a while now, and I'm sorry.
Oh, by the way, I messaged Nicole to get her opinion on the Dr. Fish to see, like, is this thing actually something that someone would like? And she says, if I had room for it, I would definitely want one. So
there you go.
There you go. It passes the Nicole test in terms of cuteness.
Okay.
All right. Let's move on to finish up with World Trigger, which, by the way, I guess I should note, it was like this the last time, and I guess that Ashihara just like is sticking with, I'm just going to keep my chapters basically the same length, and I'm just going to do 2 whenever they come out in a monthly release.
I thought the way I heard is he's slowly transitioning into doing larger chapters, but I might be mistaken on that. I mean, this format still works for them, so.
Yeah. And, this way it's like, okay, he's basically doing, slightly more than 2 chapters a month in terms of the old output length. So it should be less of a strain, at least. Chapter 172, Hughes, Part 6. Murakami and what's-his-face from Suzunari are engaged with Yuma and Hughes. They're, slashing swords, darting between barriers and stuff. Analysis is going on from the commentators. What happens is really cool. So Hughes summons more Escudo as a distraction, while Yuma summons a grasshopper beneath Hughes' feet, launches him forward. He starts to slash with his sword. Ko blocks it, and then Hughes touches him with his hand, summons an Escudo from his back that smashes Kuruma and blows him forward so that Osamu, coming from the other side, can summon an asteroid and start blasting him with it. It's so cool.
It is very dope. I always love the creativity of those guys put into the fight.
Yeah. Ko reacts very quickly, uses his thruster to throw his sword at Osamu, which he manages to block with his shield, but it knocks him backwards. So this leaves Murakami surrounded by both Yuma and Hughes, but he just uses his Kogetsu whirlwind, flips his sword behind his back, catches it, cuts through Yuma's arm, and to go down onto Hughes with the same stroke. Yuma was behind him. He just swings his sword in a vertical arc, which cuts off Yuma's arm, and then he's going to hit Hughes with the same strike. But Yuma has enough time to react, kick basically the Escudo sticking out of his back, and throw the blade off of its path. Hughes is able to duck underneath it and stab him and take out Murakami from the fight. That leaves only Kuruma on his own against all 3 of them. And then at that point, Emma shoots through the ceiling and blows him away so that he gets the points instead.
Yep. Through the floor.
Right. So, of course, this gives away his position to Ozma Squad, who start to converge on him. So he immediately starts to make his escape, smashes his way through the balcony, and starts to fall through the air so he can fire at them while he's escaping. And Ozma shoots him from the balcony and takes him out. It's just like such an awesome continuous sequence of stuff, and it's something that World Trigger does so well because it lays the foundation of like, this is where everyone is. Mm-hmm. This is what everyone is up to. And then everyone takes action, and it's like, oh, and this, and everything is laid out perfectly. Great stuff. That's where the first of the 2 chapters ends. Then we move on into the next one, which is Ozma Squad. part something or other, I think.
Yeah, probably. I don't know
And
why my chapter's not showing up for some reason.
basically, from there, it's just down to Tamakoma 2 and Ozma Squad at this point. All three members of Ozma Squad and all four members of Tamakoma 2. But and everyone's kind of reacting to what's just happened. Ozma taking out Emma and stuff, and taking stock of what's going on, and they're also taking account of everyone's injuries, the point totals, because Tamakoma is cleaning up, but they need more in order to catch up with Kageura's squad. They're 4 points behind still, and they need to get more points in order to overtake them, so that they'll be ranked number 2 in the B ranks, so that they can go on this mission. And everyone's like, oh, with Mikumo here, Kageura is going to get a second points because, all the injuries that he sustained, it's possible that, because he suffered the most injuries from them, it's possible that Kageura is going to get that. So, so they look into it. It's like, okay, well, Tamakoma 2 is going to be 3 points behind if Mikumo falls down now at this point. So what are they going to do? So Osamu's trying to think, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And so he eventually realizes that he thinks like, we're doing so well, but the point gap's just not going to shrink at this point. Is this why I had that bad feeling before the match? And so he just says, okay, guys, you got this, right? And he has to bail out. And Yuma says like, yeah, we got this. So Osamu's gone. It's just down to 3-on-3 for out of the 4 squads that started off. Ozma squad starts taking action. Their operator deploys beacons, dummy beacons, so that a whole bunch of false positives are going to show up as people try and track them. So it's referred to as a double-layered diversion by Hughes with all this stuff that's going on. So they have to be extra careful. Osama gets an idea. It's like, oh, hey, well, in this case, then, you can blow a hole in the mall with meteor. Just blow it up, and that way we can open up the battlefields and don't have to deal with all these tight corridors. And so they're like, okay, got it. Just fucking spirit bomb this thing, obliterates half the mall. And Korai is taken out in the blast. And everyone has to be like, it's okay, Chika, it was an accident. You did a good job. And she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't want to shoot him. But this plays into an advantage for Tamakoma too, because they're like, everyone's like, I thought that Amatori wouldn't, target people. She couldn't shoot people. It's like, no, it was okay, Chika. It was an accident. But Azuma realizes like, well, we can't, or I think the commentators rather realize, even if she tries to annihilate everything, then what if she takes out her squad and one member of Azuma survives? Then she can't really do that again.
Yeah.
But this has affected the battlefield drastically. It's now down to 2-on-3 instead. So Azuma thinks to himself,
or 2-on-3.
It's 2-on-3, but Chika can't really do a lot right now. Yeah. It's 2-on-2 in the battlefield that they're in, but who knows what Chika can do at this point. Asuma tries to think of what they're going to do because the battlefield has changed so much. So what are we going to do next? And he thinks to himself, now I get to see how much Okudera and Korai have really grown. And the chapter ends with Hughes asking Yuma how many more points until we're ranked second, and Yuma says 3.
There you go. So they need 2 points, I think, for survival at least.
They get 1 point each for survival. So if they get 2 from taking out Azuma and Korai, I think is the one that's left. I can't remember which between Okudera and Korai it is because they're always paired up. They really only need one of them to survive because Azuma would be getting all the points for taking them out at this point.
Yeah, so they would need those 2 to go down. But the worry is if they get taken down and Azuma squad gets the survival points, then they're going to be like on the cusp of getting overtaken. So it's tough.
Yeah, they're not quite out of the woods yet, but I mean things are looking better than they started off at this point. But yeah, they need to keep going.
I am hoping very desperately, because there was a period of time we didn't see what Osamu was doing. That somehow that'll play into this, because they did note that he was setting up spiders earlier.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping
Some
that we get a moment where we're like, oh right, Osamu was doing some work behind the scenes. But it was a very cool way of like getting Chica into this and finally giving her a point and just building something cool into that. I loved how they had to set up like the weirdness, the absurdity that they had to do to just beat Ko in a 2-on-1 match, and he
Yeah,
was still
because he's
killing
so good.
It's like
Hughes and Yuma going after him.
and they still had to like, all right, we'll throw this shit on him and knock. I had to hit that, and I still lost my arm. So it's pretty cool. I'll be curious.
I do like that, Yuma reacted to losing his hand by just summoning a blade through his wrist. So he cut that off too, and he's like, well, fuck, he's clutching his stump of a shoulder now.
I am. It's interesting because it's like, oh, okay, let's see how much those two guys have grown with Okudera and Korai. I'm at a point where I'm like, look, man, I care about so many fucking teams. I really don't know if I can muster up a fuck for Azuma squad. For two dudes who, I'll be honest, I couldn't tell you a defining trait between them that doesn't rely around the hair color. I'm like, old dark hair and blonde guy.
Old yin and yang.
Yeah, classics.
Old Betty and Veronica.
All right. I think we have to wrap this up.
That's it, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this first regular edition of Weekly Manga Recap of the new year of 2019. We want to thank you guys for joining us here on our new recording time around 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Mondays. Be sure to check us out on that day from now on if you want to catch the live broadcast on smashcast.tv/RoloT and twitch.tv/RoloT. And of course, be sure to stay tuned to the social media accounts so that you can stay updated on all the stuff that we've got coming out, the recording times and stuff if we have to do new stuff. He is at RoloT. I am Nick F. Time, and the official podcast account is at WMR Podcast. If you want to leave us a message of some kind, some shape, some form, then you can do that via email. Send us, a question to be answered via weeklymangarecap@yahoo.com. If you want to suggest a future manga for us to read, you can send that stuff to us via the Discord channel. We've got an entire chat room set up to discuss the current recommendation, a new recommendation you want to add. There's an entire forum that's been set up by Ninja X3i that keeps track of all the stuff that's been suggested, the stuff that we've done before. Very, very helpful to us, especially when we were going over year-end recap stuff. And speaking of which, if you want to leave a suggestion for that kind of thing, you can not only suggest stuff for year-end stuff, starting right now even, on that document, as well as suggest your own weekly MVPs and favorite series on there as well.
Yeah, we didn't do our MVPs, so I just want to piggyback that.
We are going
say
to yeah.
We're going to do our MVPs, and the chat is, or the listeners rather, are encouraged to go in as a Ninja X31 set up this Google document where you can kind of put your vote in for what you thought the series and MVP of the week are, and we'll make sure to include those during the episodes then.
Favorite series and MVP? Do we want to?
Yeah, well, we can just do it real quick.
Yeah.
So my favorite series of the week for me was World Trigger. I'm an unabashed whore for World Trigger, so I enjoy seeing it. It was super exciting. It was super fun. It's a little unfair, I guess, because there's 2 chapters of it in comparison to everything else. But it was very good. I enjoyed it a lot.
I'm going to go with Dr. Stone. Just a really cool sequence of them heading through the storm cloud. And MVP, Hendrickson?
And my MVP is actually Uraraka. I really appreciated getting something out of her that was a solid scene. I enjoyed getting some context to get her motivation and everything like that. And the audience, their favorite series was World Trigger as well, and their MVP was Chica, who I totally understand. She had a very cool scene. She threw a spirit bomb.
For me, it was Hendrickson because I really appreciated getting the context of, this was why he was a massive sycophant for Ludashell this entire time. He had a plan and executed it well.
Absolutely.
And okay, going along from there, I guess also going off of the if you want to leave a recommendation thing, I might as well just name our recommendation that we're going to be looking at next. I need some positivity, and it's been a long time since we went on a Pokemon journey, Chris. So we're going to do the Diamond and Pearl saga. It's also Platinum, but you're not supposed to know that name at first because the saga started before we knew what the third game was going to be called. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Special thanks go out to all of our Patreon supporters. Your support allows us to create all sorts of fun bonus content for you guys to enjoy. We recently did a special weekly manga recap lives to help us to get caught up a little bit on Actage. So look forward to that. And thanks as well go out to Steam Man, our target artist. You can check out his work in a number of different places, not Tumblr. And to Infamous Planet for the stuff that you do to help us out.
Yep. All right.
That's it.
Let's hit that dusty trail, Nick. Let's kick off 2019. Nick has to go for work, guys. I'm sorry. He's just going to head out of here. Oh, boom!
There.
He knocked
Kick.
it out. Yeah!